How's it going, everybody? My name is Noah Holly, and welcome back to another episode of the Pride Report. It is episode 15, and today we have one of the biggest shows of the season. Before we begin, however, I'd like to make a quick announcement. My first bracketology of the year was released today. A link is provided in the description, so be sure to go ahead and give it a look. I'm not going to be talking about it on today's show, but I will be unveiling future projections live on the Pride Report as we get closer to March and as it becomes a more important part of the college basketball season, so you can look forward to that. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Welcome back to the latest weekly reset segment where we take a look at the highs and the lows and the best and the worst of the previous week in college basketball. The team of the week is Nevada. You may think that I'm grasping at straws here, considering that someone like Kansas, for example, would make much more sense, but this category does not cover the team that had the best week as much as it covered the team that defined the week, if that makes any sense at all, which I'm assuming it does not. Anyway, Nevada moved to 18-3 and 7-0 in Mountain West play after a crucial victory over Boise State on Saturday night, proving that they deserve to be recognized as a top 25 team. I wanted to talk about Nevada because I really like this team. The Wolfpack are another instance of a mid-major that has transformed itself into a powerhouse through the transfer market. The Martin twins, Kendall Stevens, Hallis Cook, those are all really good players who have transferred from power conference schools to come play for Nevada. It's really fun to see teams from conferences other than the Big Six adapt to contend with the best of the best, as Nevada has accomplished here. The Pack sit at 23rd in the latest AP poll, which is their second stint as a nationally recognized club this season. This week's loser, or the team that disappointed me the most, is Oklahoma, as is the case most weeks. I had a lot to choose from when selecting the team that would go in this category, but Oklahoma stands out to me above Texas Tech and Wichita State, which is due to the recent play of Trae Young. On Tuesday night, Oklahoma was blown out by Kansas State, mainly due to Trae Young's 12-turnover nightmare of a performance. Following the loss, I complained that he had to be more decisive and avoid looking for the impossible pass or attempting to make a play when there just wasn't one to be made. Young followed that performance up with perhaps the most selfish performance I have ever seen in college basketball. He scored 48 points in Oklahoma's loss to Oklahoma State over the weekend, achieving the career high by attempting a whopping 39 shots and making only 14. That's right, he missed 25 shots. And a lot of those misses were low percentage, actually most of those misses were low percentage lobs that didn't fall even remotely close to the basket. You know, Young must find a middle ground. Remember how good he was when he got the most out of every possession earlier in the season? There's just too much talent here to rely on hitting miracle 30-footers, which seems to be the bulk of his game these days. And the story of the week was Zion Williamson's stunning commitment to Duke. Williamson, of course, being the hyper-athletic prospect that became an internet sensation thanks to his flashy dunks. The potential here is unimaginably high, but of course we all know how good he can be. What we don't know, however, is how in the world Clemson lost a 1.5-mile lead in his recruitment. It felt like a done deal heading into his nationally televised announcement that Williamson would stay in his home state and choose Clemson. But for what feels like the 400th time this decade, Duke stepped in at the last minute and pried away a recruit who had seemingly made up his mind. Honestly, I don't even know why I'm surprised by this anymore. The Blue Devils recruit better than any other team in the country, and it's frankly not even close. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next segment. Even with most of the 5 stars having already committed, many highly touted class of 2018 recruits have yet to make up their mind. In fact, 6 5-stars remain undecided. Let's take a look at which school the biggest remaining names will likely end up choosing. Point guard Romeo Langford is the biggest remaining name that has yet to decide. My prediction is Vanderbilt. If he ends up choosing Vandy, then he would become the 3rd top 15 recruit the Commodores would have landed in this class. Langford would join Darius Garland in their backcourt to form quite the imposing duo, which I'm sure is a major selling point of his recruitment process at Vandy. Regardless of whether he chooses Vandy or not, you cannot deny that Bryce Drew is doing an amazing job building this program. I mean, no one expected him to land this type of talent in just, his 3rd or 4th year at the head of the school. Anthony Simmons, a power forward ranked 10th nationally, decommitted from Louisville in September after FBI investigations surfaced. Tennessee has been recruiting him hard and looks like the closest thing to a front runner as of now, with Florida and a couple of other SEC schools also in the mix. Number 17, Jordan Brown, is a West Coast prospect heavily pursued by a couple of Pac-12 schools. I will be very surprised if he gets out of that league. Number 15, E.J. Montgomery, Brown's fellow power forward, decommitted from Auburn following the investigations and will be an interesting name to watch over the next few weeks. He could potentially serve as a consolation prize in the Zion Williamson sweepstakes for Kentucky or UNC or Clemson. But I don't have enough information to give a prediction, but perhaps that will change in the upcoming weeks. All right, let's move along to the heart of today's show, which of course is the weekend recap. Only one instance of ranked teams going head-to-head over the weekend resulted in a Saturday slate loaded with upsets. Let's take a brief look at every top 25 result over the weekend from Villanova to TCU. Speak of the devil, the Wildcats hammered former Big East rival Connecticut 81-61 to ensure another week atop the polls, and even more doubt surrounding UConn coach Kevin Ollie's job security. Yes, Ollie did defy odds to win a national championship a few years ago, but how much of that was on his shoulders as opposed to Shabazz Napier's? Connecticut should in no way, shape, or form be as bad as they are considering the amount of talent they have on the roster, and yet here they are. It appears Ollie has little control over this team, which could result in UConn biting the bullet and buying out his contract at the end of the year, as expensive as it may be. Number 3, Purdue destroyed Iowa 87-64. This game was over before it really had even started, which is the case more often than not when Purdue hits the floor, or when they have as of late. The Boilermakers absolutely owned the Hawkeyes from deep, hitting 20 of 33 from behind the arc en route to a remarkable 60.6% success rate. We just don't talk enough about how good of a shooting team Purdue is. The Boilermakers are loaded with veterans who just walk out and hit shots no matter the circumstances, which is one of the many reasons they are in prime position to have a big run in the NCAA tournament. 4th-ranked Oklahoma dropped their second straight in overtime to rival Oklahoma State. I discussed Trae Young's performance in this game a little bit earlier in the show. His 14 made field goals were half of the Sooners' total Saturday, which is certainly a concerning statistic. Oklahoma's performance was dysfunctional for reasons not necessarily limited to Trae Young's shot selection. Today's practice, it was surely as intense as ever for a Sooners club, just scrambling for quick fixes as they prepared to host Kansas on Tuesday. Number 5, Duke, and number 6, West Virginia rolled 2 blowout wins over Pittsburgh and Texas, respectively. More or less expected wins of this margin for both teams, especially West Virginia, who was sure to be hyper-focused and play with a sense of urgency after back-to-back collapses in their last 2 games. Number 7, Wichita State fell to Houston 59-73 on Saturday, dropping their second game of the week. The Shockers are learning the hard way about the difference in toughness and competition from the American to the Missouri Valley. Number 8, Texas Tech was also upset on Saturday, perhaps in more stunning fashion, as it came at the hands of an Iowa State team that many consider to be the weakest in the conference. The Cyclones' 72-52 win was a firm reminder that weakness just does not exist in the Big 12. This league consistently amazes me with how truly difficult it really is. Number 10, Kansas survived a late push from Baylor to move to the top spot in the Big 12. Malik Newman was huge, scoring 24 points, as the Jayhawks avoided a major letdown after their season-altering comeback win at West Virginia earlier in the week. Seriously, Bill Self is an absolute genius. If this Kansas team of all Kansas teams sticks course and wins yet another Big 12 regular season title, I seriously don't think that this streak is ever going to end. Don't get me wrong, it's not like Kansas is a bad team, but they don't have nearly as much going for them as they did in recent years. Number 11, Xavier picked up a big win over Seton Hall. Love him or hate him, you cannot deny that J.P. Macura was a game changer on Saturday. A career night from him proved to be kryptonite for a Pirates team that was hoping to avoid its second straight loss in league play. 12th-ranked Cincinnati remained unbeaten in the AAC with a dominant 86-60 win over East Carolina. Number 13, Gonzaga bounced back from their losses to St. Mary's earlier in the week to beat Santa Clara 75-60. Number 14, Arizona earned a hard-fought 73-71 road win over a surging Stanford team. This ended up being the game of the day as the contest was back and forth throughout the second half. I'm very curious to see what becomes of Stanford, a laughingstock turned Pac-12 dark horse after the return of Dorian Pickens. In a conference as wide open as the Pac-12, I really wouldn't be surprised to see these guys finish in the top 4 of the league standings. Their play in the non-conference was just too poor for them to qualify for a tournament bid, however. Number 15, North Carolina continued to roll topping Georgia Tech behind double-doubles from Luke May and Theo Pinson. The Heels absolutely manhandled the Yellow Jackets on the boards, out-rebounding them 46-25. Number 16, Arizona State avoided upset on the road against lowly California. ASU won 81-73 despite modest scoring outputs from their stars, including Trey Holder, who had another subpar night, totaling 13 points. 17th ranked Auburn used another huge second half to knock off Georgia and move to 17-2. Bryce Brown had 28 for the Tigers. Florida is back in the national conversation after taking down Kentucky Saturday night. The Gators took the lead late to hand Kentucky its third loss in SEC play. Now, like most people, I had my fair share of issues with Florida earlier in the season, but I knew that it was foolish to count out a team such as the Gators, who possess a loaded backcourt, a very tough defense, plenty of experience, and a great coach in Mike White. On the other hand, Kentucky may not be built for postseason success unless a go-to scorer emerges and they can improve defensively. The Wildcats fell out of the rankings following the loss for the first time since 2014. Clemson picked up a big win over Notre Dame on Saturday, but also suffered their biggest loss of the season in the same game. Senior forward Dante Grantham was ruled out for the season after tearing his ACL during the course of play. That is absolutely horrible news for Grantham. I definitely wish him a full recovery. That is just terrible. He was playing amazingly. This is also a brutal blow to a Clemson team that has been much better than has been in recent years. The Tigers' front court situation is going to transition from a mismatch in Clemson's favor to a search for someone who can step up and anchor the interior alongside Elijah Thomas. Number 21, Tennessee picked up a 70-63 victory on the road against South Carolina. Guard Lamonte Turner had a career night for the Vols, scoring 25 points. Ohio State destroyed Minnesota 67-49 to improve to 8-0 in conference play. And finally, to round out the top 25 slate, Kansas State picked up their second upset win of the week over a ranked team by topping struggling TCU 73-68. Bruce Weber has done a phenomenal job with this Kansas State team, which few considered to be in the mix for a tournament bid coming into the year, but it's safe to say that they are now. The ranked action picked up again on Sunday. Number 2, Virginia shut down their latest opponent, holding Wake Forest under 50 to earn a 59-49 win. UVA survived a sluggish offensive output to earn the victory and stay untouched in ACC play. Michigan hammered Rutgers 62-47, and Miami held off NC State 86-81 to avoid dropping their third in a row. Whew. I need to take a breath, my goodness. That will do it for this weekend's recap segment. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Let's go ahead and move right along and preview tonight's games. Let's run through and take a look at the best games on Monday night. North Carolina takes their 4-game win streak on the road against Virginia Tech at 7 p.m. on ESPN. The Hokies have been a major disappointment this year. I talked them up big time coming into the season, but they just haven't performed nearly as well as I figured that they would. Also at 7 p.m., Maryland travels to Indiana in a huge game for the Terps. Maryland sits squarely on the bubble right now and must avoid losing games like this down the stretch. This game is going to be on FS1. 13th ranked Ohio State will host Nebraska at 8 p.m. on Big Ten Network. Per ESPN, Chris Holtmann is the first coach in 95 years to win his first 8 Big Ten games. I anticipate that he will extend that streak tonight. And even more Big Ten action, Michigan State will travel to face Illinois, who remains winless in conference play. That game is at 9 p.m. on FS1, following the Maryland-Indiana game. Also, TCU takes on West Virginia in a crucial game for the Horned Frogs. TCU has dropped 4 of its past 5 and hopes to avoid dropping out of the Big 12 conversation. An upset win tonight could go a long ways toward reversing their fortunes. Unfortunately, I've run out of time for today's episode. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to subscribe and follow the show on Twitter at CPP Pride Report. Really helps us out if you go and do both things. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will join you tomorrow for episode 16. But that's going to do it for today's show. I'm out. I will see y'all tomorrow.